do I go down this path that I very clearly hate, but it's the responsible thing to do? You know, computer science, you're going to get a good job. Or do I drop out and not go into debt and try to pursue this video thing?
Which option do you think she took? Sara Dietschy is a filmmaker and podcaster that shares her passion for making films and exploring the latest in tech on both her YouTube channel as well as Instagram, Twitter, all those social media accounts. This is a super fun and energetic conversation. In it, we talk about finding happiness in a $13 salad, how to create engaging content for YouTube, and that one time that Casey Neistat gave her props in a video and she got 40,000 subscribers in a day. Yeah, that happened. Amazing conversation. Sarah's such a bright and energetic person that this was really a lot of fun to record as well as edit. This podcast is advertisement free, and you know that, so there's a couple ways that you can support it. Leave a review. Leave a review on iTunes or a rating on iTunes and let people know what you enjoy from the show, what value you get out of it. That certainly helps. You can share your favorite podcast episode with a friend, whether it's this episode or another one. If you got some value out of it, I'm sure you know somebody that could also get some value. You can also mail a letter to your grandmother with a link to the URL. That's an option. I don't know if your grandma has email or not, but you can always do it through snail mail. And lastly, you can send in your questions. If you have a question for me or for my guests about your creative path and your journey, then record a video or audio and send it to hello@mattdiavella.com and we'll get you on the show. Again, that's hello@mattdiavella.com. All right, that's the end of the intro. Let's start the podcast. This is Sara Dietschy. You're listening to The Ground Up Show, a podcast that inspires creatives to make meaningful content and pursue their passions. My name's Matt Diavella, and I'm a filmmaker best known for the Netflix documentary Minimalism. And I'm sitting down with creators to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how to make an impact.
Everyone wants to just take the shortcut with audio, and I'm sure you've learned this, that with audio, like, people can forgive a bad image, but very rarely bad audio.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I just got to go all in with the stuff.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, starting a podcast pretty late in the game. You just started a podcast too,
I did.
which makes
3 episodes ago. So
that's crazy.
for 3 weeks.
Yeah. So good timing to have you on the podcast to kind of talk about your experience with that. But you know, starting a podcast in 2017, 2018, I felt like it was almost like starting a blog in 2010 when things really started to build momentum. So it's like, what can I do that's a little bit different? What can I do that's actually gonna get my voice heard? And actually, people are gonna notice right away that it's a little bit different than what other people are doing. And like the first thing is just quality. And I noticed that with yours. I don't know. Are you planning on doing all your podcasts in person?
I am. Yeah. So I like the audio of just mics. I know a lot of people do it over the phone, which probably allows you to diversify the people you have, because you can interview someone freaking in like Europe or Asia. You don't have to be there. But I like interacting with people, and I think having a conversation in person can actually be so much more valuable. And I don't know, I noticed that I started watching podcasts a lot. And so I was like, oh, okay, I was going to just do audio, but I actually sit there and will watch a podcast video for an hour. And I started doing that actually with like the H3H3 podcast. And it also lends to that like discoverability that you're not going to have on any other podcast platform.
You know, I primarily did it from a promotional perspective. Well, and one was that when I started out, I had no audience across anything. I think I had like 1,000 Twitter followers, and and even then, it's like nobody was listening to me. It was like my mom was the only one that retweeted my stuff. So I was like, all right, this is really starting from nothing, and which is kind of the whole theme of the show. But I was like, if I make just my quality top notch, I think that will attract people that have an eye for that, and creators, they'll see it and they'll be like, oh, okay, like this guy's actually, it's a real thing. It's not like he's just recording it on his phone,
right?
Which I think has helped, but it still is like a struggle from the beginning to get things going and to build the momentum.
Well, it's just new, because with anything, I think just now people are looking at, oh, okay, vlogging, I get it now, let's start a vlog, but it's almost like it's too late for that. And I think podcasts are the new hip and happening thing, and just the thing is you have to have something to say. So
I think you and I are onto something new here, and this is Rich Roll. I had on the podcast. He's got like 20 million downloads. He's been doing this. Wow. He's been doing this a long time. He's got one of the most popular podcasts, but he's just saying how he's like trying to get more into film and video. He's starting to film every one of his episodes. Hasn't seen the traction on that point yet, where it's like he's still getting probably hundreds of thousands of downloads per episode on the audio side, and on the video it's probably tens sometimes. So I think that there's kind of almost this is just the beginning of filming really high quality video podcasts, because they're out there.
They are, yeah.
Joe Rogan has a podcast that he films.
I'm shocked that Tim Ferriss still doesn't film his podcast. Like, that's actually shocking to me.
It's a massive missed opportunity. Although he does do a lot of phone calls. I don't know if it's changed up. But
yeah. He's actually one of the first podcasts that I started listening to. And I love it. And I do listen to his passively, whether I'm on a commute or I would say driving, but I don't drive anymore, on the subway. I've been doing a lot of driving in LA, but I would definitely watch his, because I value his opinion, all the guests that he has, but he does do a lot of phone interviews.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously opens him up to do a lot more. And then even if you do a podcast in person, you might get an ambulance that drives by. There's always gonna be things that interrupt.
Exactly.
It's funny here. Like 2 days ago, I did a podcast with Joel West, who's a composer. And then there's people up on these big lifts, these scissor lifts, cutting down palm trees, like with the chainsaws. Like right out here. It's pretty crazy. But like every day I set out to do a podcast, there's some kind of interruption.
There has to.
But I think that you're totally raising the bar with doing it in person. But then, like you said, there's a connection there. There's something that's a little bit different when you meet somebody in person. That I've done a lot of podcast interviews over the phone, and I think it's great, like, and to each their own, but I don't even know what that person looks like. Right. And there's like less of a intimate connection there. And then it's like after this podcast, it's like, oh, now I know Sarah. Now we've actually had a chat in person.
And selfishly, it's such a good way to just connect with people. And now it's like, oh, we've done a podcast. Maybe we'd feel comfortable to like collaborate on a video later or something. Because I feel like it's such a bigger step towards bigger ways to collaborate.
Right.
That's why I started my first creative series. Like, I had a docu-series called Creative Spaces TV, and then I had just a strict interviewing series called That Creative Life. And selfishly, it was like, I need to meet more people, but I can give them something really valuable in return because I make good videos. So I can like really document their craft and how they do what they do in a really aesthetic, good storytelling way. And then I've made that connection, and then I know the people that they know, and it's just kind of like building out that creative network that has really helped me.
Yeah, in meeting other creatives can be challenging. Meeting just friends in general. I remember like talking to my sister. And
that was my favorite part of your apartment tour, by the way, when you're like, oh, me and my girlfriend can have her friends or something. Like, oh wait, no, we don't have any friends. Relatable.
Yeah, like kind of real, kind of a joke, kind of real.
But I feel that.
Yeah, it's, making friends as an adult is not the easiest and straightforward thing. It's like you got sport leagues that you can do, but hey, what if you don't like sports? One thing you could do is just, if you find people that you want to chat with, just say, hey, you want to get coffee or lunch or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like, how many of those can you do? It's a lot of high effort. And then,
especially here where you have to drive 40 minutes everywhere.
Yeah. But then if it's, hey, come on the podcast, let's have a conversation. Now you're actually creating something that can be repurposed and people might be able to get value from. And also, like, half the time you might not, I'm not saying this for my podcast, but you might not connect with the people, and it may not be a relationship that you want to continue. But you won't know that until you meet up. And it's like, it becomes clear on that specific episode. So how's things going with the podcast so far? Pretty good?
Good. Yeah, it's super fun and exciting, and it was fun starting it out with Gary Vaynerchuk.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
It's a good start.
So that was fun. And it's funny because I wasn't supposed to start this until end of February. And so the moment that his new book got released, though, I was like, oh, okay, I can add value to him by, doing a podcast with him. And ideally, I wanted to do it later because I'm not ready yet. There's things you have to worry about. How are you going to distribute it? I don't have the artwork. I don't even know what my podcast name was when I confirmed the podcast with him. And the fact that they were like, okay, we'll do it, but only on this day at this time. And I was like, oh, that's January 30th, a month before I wanted to start the podcast. But sometimes you just have to say yes because it's Gary Vaynerchuk. So I was like, fine. So yeah, I actually started a month before. So I was like, I got to figure out what the name of this is. And but it was definitely worth it because he's someone who for the past year, I've kind of stepped away from his content because I took it in, I was inspired, and then I went and did it. But recently, I was hopping back into his stuff, so I was like, oh, I gotta have him on. And so, I've been on his show before, and I'm good friends with a lot of his employees. So yeah, we made it happen. So that was a really good way to start it off, and kind of gave me the energy to go into the next few. So
I think that's the best thing is because when you're creating for yourself, you often don't have deadlines and you need to create your own deadlines.
Exactly. So Gary created them.
He created that deadline. You're like, all right, I guess I'm going to do this. Exactly. But then it's funny that you made it happen. You were able to put the pieces together. You got a logo together. Yeah. You figured out how to distribute and put this thing online, which is the important part because that's the one thing that when I look back at my career, I've been very fortunate and very lucky to have these opportunities present themselves. But if I didn't bust my ass and work hard to get there, it would have all been for nothing because I wouldn't have had the skills to, you know what I mean? Like if you were like, hey, I want to start a podcast and you got the Gary Vee interview, but you didn't know how to record audio or you didn't know how to shoot video, it would have been much more difficult to put things together.
100%.
When did you get into filmmaking?
It all started back in high school with cheesy school projects like rap music videos.
Oh God, I got a story for you about rap music videos. I got sued once.
I feel like no way.
For $7 million.
Okay, well, you're going to have to tell that story, and we'll get back to how I started. Phil, I want to hear how.
I'll give you the cliff notes. I've told this before in the podcast. I don't know if I've gone too into detail, but this was 2006. So YouTube was really just starting. And I want to say this is when parody rap videos were new and fresh. And I forget some of the big ones back then, but there were a few that went viral. And I was like, this is my chance. This is what I'm going to do. So then I did a video called Produce Paradise with my brother. We worked in a grocery store I don't know if you're familiar with the AMP.
I am not.
They have since gone bankrupt, but there's a whole chain of super fresh AMP. It was at one point the biggest grocery store in America. They were the Facebook of today, essentially, how synonymous their name was with just grocery stores. So we made this parody rap video. It was very inappropriate. We were pretending to pee on food of rude employees that we came across. And then we got fired from our jobs. And then within, I think, 2 weeks, we found out from a reporter. He called us and said, hey, just wanted to let you know, I'm at the courthouse right now, and I see that AMP filed a lawsuit against you and your brother for $7 million. And we were freshmen in college, right? We were like, what? That video? Nobody watched it. We had maybe a couple hundred views at the time. And then the next morning, it's just 15, 20 calls from reporters. We were driven to CNN's American Morning. We were on national television. It was the craziest shit ever for
Why? What was their reason?
It was defamation because we peed on their produce. And we were wearing their hats in the video. That was what they pointed to is that. But I'm it's funny how things have changed though, because that was the very beginning of this whole media and people making fun of brands.
Right.
And
now they would have taken it in stride and make stuff around it. And be come shop.
Right. You look at what happened with Arby's and Jon Stewart. I don't know if you saw that whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like Jon Stewart had this like reoccurring thing where he would make fun of Arby's, like just say how disgusting the food was and it was so terrible. And then every time they did it, Arby's would send the entire staff meals for the day.
That's amazing.
And then it became this thing where it wasn't a negative. They kind of laughed at themselves.
Right.
And then it changed. But anyway, tell me about I want to hear about your rap battles.
So I was always into music. So before video, I played electric guitar in a band. And so I was always surrounded by musicians and music. And so once high school came along, a lot of my classes, for some reason, really embraced the creative side of things. We're like, okay, you could write a report, or you could make a rap song about it, make a music video. That happens so many more times than normal, I feel like. Yeah. And so I became that chick who was like, oh, if you want to make a rap music video for your project, you want to be in Sarah's group.
You found your niche.
Exactly. So I kind of took, my background in music and video. I wasn't super experienced in video, but my dad had a Canon T3i and I was really good in iMovie. And so I would make my own rap songs for these projects. And the one that popped off the most, I think the only one that I actually post to YouTube, it was called, if you like Google search the law of supply and demand, my music video is like the fourth one on YouTube.
Sounds like it's educational as well.
It's educational. Yeah. It's so good, man. It's so embarrassing though. And so it's basically, junior year of high school, a very educational rap music video about economics. And so it really solidified around just like goofy projects and stuff. But my freshman year of high school, I actually had an A4V class where I learned Final Cut Pro 7, and that made that interface way less scary. And so I used that, and then the transition to Premiere was easy because it was super similar to that. So the editing came before filming, and I didn't get my first camera until I was like 19. Yeah, so only like 4 years ago, I bought a Canon 70D with like a 40 millimeter pancake lens, and that was the beginning of it all. But throughout high school, I just used my dad's Canon T3i. There's no autofocus on it, so you would always have to manual focus. I know that sounds crazy to people who just do YouTube, but then the filmmaking world is like, why are you even saying the word autofocus,
Right, like blasphemy.
Exactly. So that's where it all started.
Yeah. That's I love how you got started out doing the rap videos, but it's really fortunate that you got into editing, because I think that is, now quality is starting to become so synonymous, and it's just like across the board, quality is obvious.
Yeah.
If you have an iPhone, you can shoot pretty damn good video.
There's no excuse nowadays.
Yeah. Right. So, but the editing is still another question. And I think with editing comes the storytelling, because you shoot a lot of footage and then you have to whittle it down, and the editing and trying to figure out what's good, and just knowing the application, but then also knowing what to do with it and where to tell a story. How did that evolve for you as like a storyteller, and when did you start to realize like, okay, I'm picking this up, like things are working?
I think it started when I did my first series, the first thing that I actually took really serious. So it was the first season of Creative Spaces TV, and how I explained it to people was basically MTV Cribs with substance. So I would go into a photographer's studio or a designer studio. I would focus on their space, but also their craft, how they do what they do. And that was the first time that I really had to form a coherent story in a very short amount of time. But I had 40 minutes of interview footage. But I'm not going to post a 40-minute video. I'm sure, you make documentaries. It's very intimidating when you sit down and you have hours and hours and hours of interview footage, but then your final product needs to be an hour and a half. And so that was the first thing that really challenged me. And I would sit down. I mean, it took me almost a week just to edit one episode in the beginning, because it was really figuring out how to take 40 minutes footage, make it into a 10-minute video, but also make it entertaining. So it's not just them talking the entire time, but, making sure the B-roll is fun and the way I like to edit it. So that first series was the first time that I was like, oh, okay, this is entertaining. This is fun. I was getting feedback from other people. I mean, the storylines were making sense. And before that, I was just making travel videos that were just montages. So basically, I would go to Greece and I'd make like an epic montage to the music, but it'd only be a 2.5-minute video. So the creative series was a big step into what, now I'm doing, but that just came from myself. I was like, I need a way to meet creative people. I need credibility on the platform, YouTube. I need to prove that I can make dope stuff. And so no one really told me, or I didn't have any incentives to make it, but I was just like, this is the next step. I got to do it. And turns out I really loved it.
Was the vision, when did you decide to start a YouTube channel? I think that's like probably I don't know if you saw something or what pushed you over the edge to say, ooh, I want to start doing that and like making my stuff public and start to try to build an audience here.
I started my YouTube channel in 2011, which was like, junior year of high school. And my first YouTube video ever is actually me playing a guitar pedal. Like it was like a fuzz pedal or something that I wanted to sell. Because there was this guitar forum where you could, sell stuff. And I always went through gear like crazy. I've always been a gearhead, whether it's guitar or camera stuff. And so this was a really sick sounding pedal, and it was kind of like a vintage one. So I wanted to prove that it sounds really cool. So I got my Canon T3i, my dad's Canon T3i. I set it up and I played the pedal and I posted it to YouTube. That was my first video ever, like September 2011. And so I just posted that link in the forum with selling my pedal. And it all of a sudden just started getting hundreds of views and then thousands of views. And I was like, what? Like 100 people top should be seeing this. And my pedal isn't even sold yet, But that's when I first kind of discovered like, oh, there's an audience here. And especially with searchable content, people are searching out guitars and guitar pedals. And then I very soon learned cameras. That was the case with cameras. And I started falling more in love with video. So from 2011 to 2014, 2015, I didn't post a lot, but I just posted what I was having fun with. So I would go travel to Iceland and I would vlog it like in 2013, 2014, and I would post those, and not with anything like, oh, I hope thousands and thousands of people see this, but like, oh, I want my friends to see this. This is really fun. I enjoyed making it. And then once I started getting more into camera equipment, I basically would unbox everything that I would get and I would teach as I was learning. So it would be, I would literally learn like ISO, shutter speed, aperture, shooting a manual. And then the next day I would be teaching it on YouTube, Right. But I was like, oh, okay. I think I have a unique perspective because I understand what it's like to not know this. And so I can turn around, teach it in a way that is useful for people who don't understand it because that's so fresh in my brain. So that's what I started to do in the beginning. Yeah,
I found that as well when I was learning guitar. I would pick it up and I would start playing, and then it wasn't that easy, but I would watch videos online of other guitar players and teachers, and you could very quickly tell who is really good and who is not very good at teaching. And sometimes it's the people that are just getting started out, or that are like you said, that they know what it's like to not know.
Right.
Because there is this curse of knowledge that once you know too much about it, you just pick it up and you start going, and then you skip over all these steps and the background.
Because you don't remember what
forget,
it's like.
Right. What's the best thing to do is try to play guitar left-handed or whatever you're not doing, and you just totally forgot everything.
Right.
And you have to relearn from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that can sometimes be challenging, and it's definitely a skill to teach and to learn how to kind of present stuff online. That's something that I'm still learning.
Yeah.
So did you have a vision for what you wanted to do? Did you go to college?
I went to college for 3.5 years.
Ooh,
and then
something happened. Yeah, something happened.
So basically, what I always say is like, I truly was a math science geek in high school. I tried hard. I was good at school, just because I knew that I wanted to go to college, but at the same time, I didn't have a ton of money away. So I'm like, okay, I should probably try hard so I can get a scholarship. And so I, did well, graduated in my top 10%, got a scholarship to a local college. And then I was like, I was still so into guitar at the time. And I did math and science stuff. So I was like, let's be an electrical engineer. That's going to sound good when I'm back home for the holidays and telling my grandparents, like, oh, yes, I'm studying electrical engineering. Are you proud of me? So half of it was honestly that. I think a lot of people go to college for their parents and their grandparents, and that makes no sense because it's your life.
Yeah.
And so I started with electrical engineering. I stayed at home, to save money, and I just commuted 30 minutes to my college every day. And it was terrible. It was awful. But after I finished my homework, the only thing I was doing was like making videos because it was like this newfound love that I was just obsessed with. And that's something that I continually try to look at video as how I was doing it back then because it was my escape back then. And it was so fun because it was like a way to escape my homework. And that's something, now that it's my job, it feels like a job a lot of the time. And I have to pinch myself, remind myself, like, you're doing this for a living. This is fun. Try to, make it that way again. And so electrical engineering was just terrible. And then I switched to computer science. And because I switched my majors, it added on another year and a half of school. And so 3.5 years into it, I ran out of scholarship money because it's very hard to try to keep a 3.5 GPA when you're a computer science major. So lost my scholarship, and I found myself at a private school in Tennessee. So I started school in Texas, and then I moved to Nashville, and I was going to Belmont because I was like, oh, people do music here. This is going to be fun. I wanted to live in Nashville. And I kind of hit this wall, and I was like, okay, I don't have any scholarship money left. I don't really have any money, and
have any money.
Exactly, like real money. And the school is $15,000 a semester. Like, this literally makes no sense. And so I kind of had an opportunity there of, do I go down this path that I very clearly hate, but it's the responsible thing to do? Computer science, you're going to get a good job. Or do I drop out and not go into debt? And try to pursue this video thing. And so it was, many months of just being on the phone with my mom. And I remember the first time I was ever like, I don't think I want to go back to college next semester. And that quickly evolved into, I'm not even going to take my finals for this semester. So I basically literally stopped going to school. A month before the first semester at Belmont ended. And so it was the most wasteful $15,000 ever because I didn't have a scholarship there. And so, it was just a point in my life that I was like, it's cool because the practical option was also like the following my dreams option to where it's like, oh, I don't have to go into debt. And I might have a real shot in this video thing because I've been doing it for the past 3, 4, even 6 years if you include high school. And so, I just went for it, and a lot of things lined up, and I am here.
Yeah, well, kudos to you for stepping out before you got to that point where you realized that you weren't actually going to be happy down that path. Right. Because, imagine you run a marathon and then you're 1 mile away from finishing, and then you're like, I don't really like running marathons. Exactly. I'm just going to stop.
Exactly. And while I was in it, there was a lot of me that it's weird when you have friends around you and you see other people at school and you see their parents paying for their college and stuff, and it's such an easy thing for just them to do. And so when I was in the middle of it, I actually had a lot of not anger, but just confusion over why my parents couldn't help with college. Why? But at the same time, it's not their problem. And if I didn't have that financial pressure, I don't think I might have not dropped out. And that would have been terrible because I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I really think during times like that, it seems like you're in hell and you have no idea what you're doing. But in hindsight, I truly believe everything happens for a reason. And there was a reason why I kind of hit that wall, because it allowed me to stop and be like, what do I really want to do? If I'm already living my life for plan B at the age of 21, what is even the point? you know? So.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest lesson that I'm trying to get across for people. And I think that the student loan thing is, I graduated college with $97,000 in debt, which if I could do one thing with this podcast, it's to help people to not enter the world like that. I graduated in 2010, which was 2 years after the financial crisis. So there were no jobs, which actually might have been more beneficial for me because it wasn't like everybody was throwing job offers at me.
Right.
Because if I had been given a job at like a tech company or, you know, now a lot of tech companies are hiring full-time filmmakers, maybe I wouldn't have done my own thing. And I don't think I ever would be fulfilled working for a company and just kind of delivering the same stuff every day. But it's very challenging to enter the world when you have kind of that weight of the debt.
Because when you graduate college, that's the start of your life, I feel like. You know, in middle school and high school, in college, you're answering to other people all the time. You're doing a lot of things that you don't want to do. And it's this really liberating feeling post-college or when you drop out or just post-high school, if you decide to take a break. You have this realization of, I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want. And especially if you actually put in the work during high school and you start kind of that soul searching of what are my passions, what I want to do. If you start in middle school and high school doing that, it's going to be so fun after college or after high school because you really have a grip on what you like to do. And I think starting in middle school when I started playing electric guitar, and I also played basketball and then there was video, all of my passions that I had, I just like full throttle ran with it. And I did that until I hit a wall of, I don't like this anymore. And then I moved on to the next thing. And I just like full on did it. And that kind of led me, you know, to video. But I found video at the age of like, I feel like I'm talking like I'm 60. And I have like all this wisdom. I don't. I'm 23 at the young age of 23 years ago.
I was a child back then.
Exactly. But, you know, it really led me to what I truly love to do at a very early age. And I think that has a lot to do with like not really having a lot of friends, but just really searching out.
Thank God for that.
Exactly. But having a few really good friends that I was able to build with and be creative with. And it really led me to, what I'm doing today. But I think I hate to do blanket statements of, you know, you shouldn't go to college because there's the doctors and the lawyers and stuff. But there are always alternatives. I mean, there are community colleges. Like, if you have to live in your parents' house for 4 years and, like, save $100,000, like, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's really burdensome when you enter the world with debt. Because when I dropped out of college, I didn't have a lot. And I didn't have a lot in my bank account. But I wasn't in debt. So I kind of felt this freedom to just go and do it.
Well, when you have debt, when you're in the hole, you start to make different decisions. That's why a lot of people get caught up in the 9-to-5 corporate route in a job that they don't love. And you have to say that obviously there's people that love their jobs. My girlfriend, she loves her job. She works a 9-to-5 job. But if you have that debt, you're in a lot of ways trapped. And I felt trapped. And even though I was doing not an untraditional path, I was working, you know, in the beginning we were talking like weddings and stuff. And I slowly grew up to working with startups and tech companies. But I still felt like a little bit trapped where I'm like, I have to keep making money because I have $600 in student loans I have to pay off every month. So, but once I was able to pay it off, it's just like an amount of freedom. That's why I can do this podcast is because, well, I actually don't need to make that much money to be able to survive, to be able to pay the rent, to be able to pay my bills because I whittle down my monthly expenses so low that you can take risks. But
that minimalistic lifestyle.
That minimalist
I'm definitely
lifestyle.
not a minimalist, but I totally, like believe in a lot of principles with it. And I think and I think it's almost like people think it's just what naturally you should do. I think a lot of people fall into, okay, you just go into debt for college, it's what you do. You go into debt to pay for a $40,000 wedding, it's just what you do. Oh, you have kids? Okay, you got to get that like 7-car seat car. You just go into debt for that. And it's like, it's just never ending. And lame way to live. You know?
Yeah. You have to question. You have to ask questions of yourself. I think the problem happens when people stop asking questions, when they stop asking like, well, what's going to make me happy? Like, what can I give? How can I help? If you're not asking these tough questions, then eventually you're going to feel trapped. I love what you said just about loving filmmaking. And it's like, you have to really love what you're doing. And, you know, like you said, eventually it's going to get to a point where it feels a little bit more like work. And that's because it's a grind sometimes. Sometimes
all the time.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
The time.
Yeah. And no, it really is. And you know what? There's part of me that likes it. I still like, I'm not the kind of person that's like, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah.
I hate that. I'm like, dude, I love sleep, man. I'm sleeping like in 10 minutes once this podcast is over. So I think that everybody should get their sleep and they should rest. And if you're feeling too stressed out, maybe you pushed yourself too far. It's like, it's okay to be out of balance every once in a while if you kind of recalibrate and bring it back. But at the end of the day, the core of what you're doing, you should love. Like there should be something that you can find in it that you love, because there's no way you're going to be able, first of all, to compete with other people. Like you can't compete with, I had Cole Younger, a photographer, LA based.
Sounds super familiar.
Yeah. He's got like a couple 100,000 followers. Okay. He's like the LA photographer, just gorgeous photos. Yeah. You can pop that up. And he, such an amazing story, but he actually started out, homeless. He like had a really tough upbringing, and he found photography, and that helped him get out of it. And he like started shooting with an iPhone 4, but he would just spend the streets every day roaming around taking photos because he loved it. Yeah. It was like, it was an escape for him. It was an opportunity for him to tell his story and the story of people that he grew up with. You can't compete with that, because it's that love of creating, of pushing stuff out there that is gonna, I think, come through in your work.
Totally. And I think the day we live in of documenting everything and showing everything is a blessing and a curse, because I think you have these people like Gary Vaynerchuk who are like, put in the work, but then you see him running a $150 million business, and like he's putting out sneakers and it's dope. And
it's dope.
And I will say this, I think Gary is like the most legit, sincere person out there in that like entrepreneurial space, because he's actually like putting in the work, and he's actually like a very good human. But people see those things, and they see famous YouTubers with Lamborghinis, and they see all of this, and they think that they just like automatically deserve it. And it's almost this mentality of like, they hear what they want to hear of these like motivational speeches and things, and they just automatically think that, oh, I can get that. And it's almost like this mentality of like waiting for it to happen to them. But when in reality, there's so many people out there that have just this insatiable hunger to create, and that's their bottom line. That's the only thing that they care about. In reality, it's going to be those people who get to that level, because for them to be satisfied, they just have to create and build, and that's what they're obsessed with. And so, yeah, it's kind of this catch-22 of like, it is motivational to see where people are and the things that they're getting that comes with the success. But it's truly only going to be the people who are like obsessed with the climb that are going to get there. Yeah.
And it's that climb though too. I think you have to eventually just get to the point where you actually enjoy that process, where you enjoy the struggle. And like, it doesn't come without doubt. Without feeling like, oh shit, is this actually going to work?
Always.
Is this going to happen? Or like, is everything going to fall apart tomorrow?
Yeah.
But
that's what's fun, man.
That's the fun part.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
And then I you know what? We know, you see like everybody, the people that get everything that a lot of us want in life, like the cars and the house and all the stuff that it would appear as if is synonymous with happiness. But then you realize that a lot of people just aren't happy.
Yeah.
Like you see a lot of, celebrities and people that are well known that try to commit suicide.
Right.
It's like, well, why would they do that? They had everything.
Right. They had all like fancy cars and
And that's not it. If you don't actually enjoy what you're doing, and if you're not enjoying the process, like it's not going to be good.
Yeah. And it's fun that's the reason why I started a podcast, and it's super fun because it's something new, and it's something that no money is attached to it. I don't even have sponsors yet. Eventually that's something I want to do, but it's just something that's new and fun. And it feels like the beginning of when I was really putting in work into my YouTube channel, like two to 3 years ago. So that's always starting like new projects and things. like always get me motivated and keep me going. But yeah, also I think maybe just like setting your standards to a lower standard. Like,
yeah,
like
that's going to be the name of this podcast. Yeah. Lower your standards.
Lower your standards. You know, I mean, like, I'm not a big car person or anything, but my first big thing was when I was just surviving off of oatmeal and peanut butter sandwiches in Nashville. I swear I gained like 10 pounds from that because it was just terrible. My thing was once I moved to New York, I was like, I want to be in a situation where I can go and afford a $13 sweet green salad every single meal, and I'm going to be good. And like right now, I can afford, because I hate cooking. I hate it so much.
And sweet green is really good.
Yeah, and it's so good, but it's healthy. Yeah. So, and it's weird because it's like, why are the more healthy options so much more expensive? That's, I guess, a conversation for another time.
It's also a New York conversation
exactly,
as well.
A New York, LA.
Yeah.
And so my like initial standard was just if I could buy a healthy meal, like every meal, I could afford that $13 salad or that $13 juice. I'm like, I'm going to be good. And I can do that now. And I'm like stoked.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what that next thing is, but the fact that I can afford just like ordering on Seamless or something, I hate to boast, but you know, that's like me making it.
You don't even need to leave your apartment.
I know.
No, that's an amazing, I think that's such a cool bar and expectation to set, because that's something that you can get value out of every day. And that's what I do as well, especially when I'm like really busy and I'm like caught up in a big project and it's really tough.
Because it has to do with your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like
I give myself, I'm like, all right, well, I'll order Chipotle. You know what I mean? I'll buy lunch for the next like 3 weeks because I'm making money, I'm working hard, and I deserve this reward. But I think somebody said it where it's like my idea with success was when I go out to a restaurant, I open up the menu and I read it from left to right and not from right to left.
There you go.
Because that was, I mean, when you think about it, just so fortunate to be at a place where you don't have to worry about if the steak costs $30 or $35. Because I've been there. And
100%. When I was in college, it was literally like oatmeal and PB&Js.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this?
Dude, I swear to God, I was at the point where I was counting coins for the dollar McDonald's like McChicken sandwich. And I was like, what is happening right now? Where are my parents? I don't know where they were. And then I eventually like borrowed money from my sister to help me get through. But like, I think it's good though to go through that.
Yeah. Because
in a lot of ways, the people that have everything from the start, you kind of feel bad for them because you know, if you're like the daughter of a celebrity or the son of a celebrity or somebody who's very wealthy, you have to find other ways to learn those principles about 100%. Value. It's not so straightforward.
Yeah.
Briefly, I want to talk about that Casey Neistat bump real quick because that shit went weird after that. Yeah. That was what, 2 years ago?
The beginning. I think it was exactly 2 years ago. So it was February of 2016.
Yeah. So you made a hilarious video kind of doing your version of a Casey Neistat vlog, and then he ended up shouting it out and calling you out. You went from a place of a couple thousand subscribers on YouTube to like close to 100,000.
Yeah. So I had a little under 4,000 subscribers, and I was actually releasing my second season of Creative Spaces TV, which, you know, is the docuseries that I did. And it's actually funny because the first season of Creative Spaces TV, I kind of used Casey too, but he was just starting vlogging, and I think he had just hit 1 million subscribers. And mail time was something that he was doing like every single week without fail. So I actually went and bought like some really nice moleskin notebooks, and I sent it to him like 3 months before I had even released Creative Space TV. And so I was slated to release the first episode ever of Creative Space TV on my birthday, August 11th. And it just so happens, it's crazy, on August 11th, the video that Casey posted was a mail time where he opened up my package and he showed my letter, and like you can go and find this. I think it's a vlog titled Free Stuff or something, that it's one of, you know, the first year of him vlogging. And he showed my letter where I was like, oh, you inspire me, Creative Space TV, youtube.com/Sara Dietschy. And I actually got like 200 subscribers from that. So that was actually my first Casey shout out. And that was, a lot of people don't know that. Yeah. And that's when I had like 500 subscribers.
Dude, like you're probably just checking every minute.
I
like,
know.
Oh, shit.
I know. And so I was like, oh, Casey said my name.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. There's notebooks. Yes. And so about almost a year later, I was releasing another season of Creative Spaces TV. And I was like, what can I do to like try to get some new eyes on this? So I was like, let's try to milk Casey for his audience again. Because like, of course, I'm such a big fan of him and everything he's done. And I'll be that annoying person that's like, I was there since the start. I was a subscriber when he only had like 100,000 subscribers. And so I've always been a big fan of him. But his filmmaking technique is so unique. And there's so many things that you can copy and kind of make fun of and you know, and no one had really done like, you know, a video,
like a parody,
exactly. And, you know, high school was just so many music video parodies. So I was like, this will be easy. This will be fun. Yeah. So I made it. And it's like a 3-minute video, me kind of mocking his filmmaking style. But at the end I was like, Casey, such a big fan of you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, at that time I had probably 3,500 subscribers. And I knew this video was going to get at least like 500 to 600 views. So I'm like, if every single person at the end of this video tweets him, like hashtag how to Casey and a link, he has to see this. So at the end. Did
you add that in the video?
Yeah. So at the end, I was like, okay, guys, let's really get Casey to see this. And I was like, tweet him how to Casey and the link of the video. And he saw it. And it's funny, I was actually on a video job. Like, it was so boring. It was filming an interview at like the Bible Bee. It literally was a game show on like Bible trivia, and I was hired to film interviews of like the hosts and stuff. So here I am, like 2 cameras set up, and it's the next day, and I got a notification of Casey Neistat just commenting "wow" on the video, and I was like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? And it's still like at 500 views or something.
Wow, that is such not a comment that you do. He's like, is that wow? Like, wow.
I know,
real nice.
I know. And I was like, what does this mean? And so this was the next day, and he commented right before he released his video. And so he ended up releasing a video that almost, you know, a third of the video is just shouting out my channel and basically being, oh, this is such a funny video, but she actually has this backlog of great content. She's what's right with YouTube. And so here I am, like in a corner at this freaking like Bible Bee. And I'm just like watching this video of him just shouting out my channel and like basically my hero saying all these nice things about me. And long story short, I basically I went from like 4,000 subscribers to 40,000 in one day. And so I immediately made another video, 4,000 subscribers to 40,000 in one day. And that went viral too.
Smart, yeah.
And so that helped me get to like 90K. And then the funniest part of the story is the struggle to 100K was so, because one of those things with the shout outs, you don't know if people are going to stay, people are going to watch. So people stayed for Creative Space TV. You know, I was releasing a whole new season I had lined up. It went amazing. Really well. So it literally went all to plan, although I just thought the best case scenario was him retweeting my video, not a shout out,
a 3-minute shout out
exactly.
In the video.
And so after that kind of settled down after a couple weeks, it was like, I was just watching my subscriber count just kind of go from like 99K, 100K, 99K, 100K.
Oh, it would go back and forth?
Yeah. And then I literally was at 102,000 subscribers for a solid like 3 to 4 weeks. And that's when I was just like, because people are unsubscribing and subscribing. So that's when I definitely had to figure things out. Like, okay, do I have to do things different? And it's been a journey ever since. But I think honestly, like 2 years later, just 6 months ago, I really found my groove. So it took a minute.
Yeah. There's a lot of pressure that comes with that because when you're only releasing to a couple thousand, you don't really have to think about it that much. But then when you realize, holy shit, there's 100,000 people that will likely see this video or get notified about it, I feel like I need to step up the bar. There's probably like a good element to that, but then there could be a paralyzing element to it where you never release. Were you consistent at that time once that happened?
So funny thing is, when I was DMing Casey when all this crazy stuff was happening, his advice was post more. He, he was just starting that daily video grind. He was, I guess, a year in, and he really made daily vlogging a thing and solidified it. Everyone was doing it. And all of a sudden, quantity was the most important thing. And so I was posting a video a week, maybe 2 videos a week. And he's like, post 3 to 5 videos a week. Post more.
So many.
So when like the vlogging king himself says post more, you do it.
Yeah, you listen.
And so for the next 6 months to a year, I was trying to do 5 videos a week, just like vlogging almost every single day. And
it's like, wait, so you're not even in New York at this point, right?
No.
Is your life boring?
No, okay. So it started in Nashville.
Yeah.
And then I did very soon after that move to New York. Okay. So it did get more exciting, but it was very hard to vlog in Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville might be a little bit tough.
Yeah, exactly. And so it took me a while to figure out that wasn't my groove. And just vlogging isn't my groove, because I would start to wake up and just grab my camera and wait for something to hit me to film. Instead of how I started with coming up with a plan, what do I want to be intentional about, and go and shoot, and then just go and shoot it. And that's what I've gotten better with now. I feel like the past 6 months to a year is I no longer just wait for stories to come with me, but I'm like, okay, what's doing well on YouTube right now, and what do I want to create, and finding that middle ground and just being like, all right, I'm going to do that. And really going back to like my roots of reaching out to people and collaborating, because very rarely do I just want me in a video. I think that's boring. I mean, I know my subscribers don't, but yeah, I just try to keep things moving and fun, and just focusing on productive things, because there's only so many montages you can do of like sweet green salad right. in the car driving to another place. That was my biggest pet peeve of vloggers, of the only thing that they would vlog is telling people where they were going, but when they got there they never showed it. And the moment I kind of got that vibe from my videos, I was like, nope,
can't
pivot.
Pivot. No, that's great that you didn't get trapped in that, because especially if it's working, it's very hard to switch it up. But like, I could see that being pretty draining. And I don't know how Casey, I don't know if he's still doing the daily. Is he still doing daily?
He's not.
Yeah, but like, how the fuck did he do it for that long?
I don't know. He's not human, so
no, I know.
That's what
and
I
it's
think.
like he's still doing other stuff, and then he's recording it. But like, obviously you can see how that works, and he makes it incredibly interesting, and each one is really captivating. You have to love it though. Like if he doesn't love it, then I'm sure he wouldn't have kept up with it for as long as he did. But it was cool to see that you kind of made that shift there. I do also think it's interesting the fact that you focus on those 2 things, where it's like, what's going to connect and resonate, what do I really want to talk about, and that's something that I've started just create more videos like that, where there's a balance, where the minimalist stuff, like my minimalist apartment,
just throw that word in every single title.
Oh my god,
you do.
It's low-hanging fruit. It just crushes. Like I literally
has like 100,000 views, right?
Yeah, that's my first video that's broken like 20 or 30,000 views, and it was, I released it 2 weeks ago. Yeah, and my subscribers went from, I think I had 4,000, and now I've got like 12.
Amazing.
In 2 weeks. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to do one of these a week.
Exactly. Just change little things about your apartment every week. Be like, all right, guys, I got a new fruit bowl. Yeah. Let's do this
new
thing.
Update. So I'm like, and I'll mix those in, because I'm trying to make it fun and enjoyable, and not just kind of the kind of status quo of the minimalist videos.
Right.
But I do enjoy them. But then that's obviously something that resonates and connects with people, but then you still have to do the stuff that you like, and I think it's a balance of the 2.
Totally. Because you can't because I think people like us who traditionally are used to being behind the camera or like producing quality stuff, you can get too romantic about things. And when it comes to YouTube, like, you can't. You can't. And so you have to find that balance.
That brings up a good point. Just, you talked about it previously, just like the brand endorsement stuff. I'm really curious about this. I don't think it's a route that I'm going to go down, but it's becoming very popular, and you see it across Instagram, especially like sponsored posts. It becomes hard to avoid that. Like, how do you go into that world, and how do you make sure that you're still serving your audience and you're not serving them things that might not actually add value to their lives?
I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of companies that just work with my brand and work with my audience. And it really helps I had this thing called the Adobe Creative Residency, where for a year, Adobe basically paid me a full-time salary to just pursue my passion projects. And so I had this opportunity where I didn't have to take brand work or worry about what my Google AdSense was like in order to pay my rent. And so it really enabled me for a year to just build these relationships with brands and being like, okay, I'm not interested in that now, but let's stay in touch. And also to say no to a lot of people, but yes, maybe in the future to a lot of people. So the moment that the residency ended, I had a lot of relationships I already developed with brands that made sense. And for me, I know how I consume content and what I don't find like offensive. So for me, for some reason, and I don't want to hurt people's feelings out there, so I'm not going to
crush them.
I do not like the Patreon model. Mm-hmm. For certain people who like make videos that take them a month to edit. So a good example of it is, his name is Evan. I forgot his YouTube channel, but basically he makes these movie reviews that are like amazing and literally takes him a month to edit, and people donate like $2 a video, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's cool. But I think it's become so normal to just ask people for money, and that's like really intrusive to me for some reason, you know?
Yeah, I don't like it, like the donate button on a website.
Yeah. And it's just weird to me. Yeah. And if I can keep doing exactly what I'm doing, and all I have to do is take maybe 30 seconds of a person's time to tell them about a product that actually might help them in their creative process or their daily life, I am like 100% down to do that. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, what's cool about working with brands is they also allow opportunities that I would never get without them. And so not only is it just product placement, but I do a lot of integrated stuff where, AT&T will send me to Vulture Festival to interview Neil Patrick Harris. I'm obsessed with How I Met Your Mother. Yeah. And you're telling me I get to interview Neil? Yes. And you're going to pay me for that? Yes. Yeah. And so it's so fun for me as well when these brands start providing experiences along with that. Before YouTube, I was making boring corporate videos just as like a filmmaker person. And so the fact that now I get to step in front of the camera and tell my narrative, but it's also kind of working with companies. So, I get paid for it as well, but I get to do it in a fun way and share that with my audience. Like, that's super cool to me. There's a limited amount of ways to make money online. Like, you have the donation stuff, the Patreon, like we both agree that it's for a very selective group of people. Yeah. And I don't think it works honestly that well, because the moment you start, it just comes off as like begging for money in a lot of ways. It doesn't, what the weird part about it is that there's like, and how I see like the economy works is like, I pay you, you give me something. Yeah, something. And that's weird that it's like, I pay you and then you make stuff whenever you want, or you make stuff, like there is not that direct transaction, which I find weird. So it's like, I probably won't do that. Here's the thing with all these things, I don't advertise on the podcast or I don't do brand endorsements, but like if it came down to it where like I ran out of money and the only way to keep this going to feed my family is to do that, like if that's what I had to do, like I'm not against it. I'm like, that's great. But at the same time, you're providing so much value on your end that people can listen to an ad for 30 seconds. Yes, I don't think. Yeah. And it starts getting weird when all of your videos or content are just clickbait and you click on the video, you don't get what you want, and then you're listening to an ad. And so my thing is I try, and hopefully I'm successful with making a video just like super entertaining or informative or inspirational. And okay, once I've done that for 9 minutes, let's talk about how I was able to do this for 1 minute. I like that model of like, I don't know if you do, I've seen people do it where they do a little pitch in the beginning. It's brought to you by Squarespace, but then I'll talk about that at the end of the video. I think that model is fantastic.
if I ever do it, that's what I'm going to do for the podcast is like, hey guys, like at the end of this podcast, I'm going to tell you about ways in which you could support and, keep this podcast running.
Mango Street is actually amazing at it. So they're a YouTube channel who does photography tutorials, and Squarespace supports them a lot. And they have like this little screen that comes down and it's like, hold on, we got to pay our bills real quick. And then they'll like say a 15-second thing about Squarespace. And so it captures your attention and you're like, oh, okay, I want to listen to this. But at the same time, you get to move on to what they're talking about.
I think that's a great way of doing it. The way that I think I'm probably going to start making money doing this thing is courses. I'm probably going to start doing that. Digital products. I mean, I feel like those are the only ways to do it. Those three things, unless there's something else that we're missing. I mean,
merch. But even the overhead on that isn't that great. For me, merch is more of a thing of like that direct exchange and just having... It is fun to have people who support you, like physically support you with having a peach on their shirt or something. Like that's amazing. But also with you, I think you have a lot of opportunity to do the just like very integrated videos where like, yo, Hawaii Tourism Board sent me out on a trip to Hawaii. And, like your entire video is somewhat about that company, but it's like amazing experienes, so it's worth it. I mean, you are an actual filmmaker, so you can probably go to these companies. You're an actual filmmaker too. Well, I feel a lot of people think, oh, YouTube, you just vlog, you just slap some clips together. So I think you can approach it in a way that, maybe even companies you've worked with in the past, you can now go to them once you have this audience, you have attention, and you can sell that attention with the fact that they're going to get a freaking piece of art. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think there's definitely a tasteful way to do it. What is getting me through is connecting the big projects. So it's like taking time to do a feature-length documentary. It's easier said than done. It's usually a multi-year process. But those things help you kind of bridge the gap. It's just very difficult, right? You want to do so much stuff. There's only so much time. So you have to be very selective about the projects.
It's very hard to scale your person.
Let's do an audience question. Cool. Well, I've got it's a 3-parter. It's a long question.
Let's do it.
I might move this.
This is the only coffee that I've tasted that's actually like good cold. It's like, it's basically turned into like a cold brew.
A cold brew, yeah. I'm glad that you like the coffee. I've put a lot of time and energy into it. So I've got a lot of filmmakers.
It's a video?
Isn't this cool? This is what we're doing here.
Oh, this is so exciting.
Changing the game.
Yes, original.
So what's really cool about having filmmakers that follow the podcast is people send these amazing quality videos.
It looks so good.
Doesn't it look great? I was like, when he
said... Is this a question literally for me?
It's actually not. I wish it was.
I was about to say. I was like...
No, I didn't reach out to people. I don't reach out to people because like sometimes like... I would need to do it in advance,
right?
And then sometimes podcast like it may not work out, something happens, and then it's just weird to like throw that out there. Right. This actually is a question really specific to me, but I have a way to bring it in.
Okay.
So we'll get to it. Oops, nope, that's not working. I have this is the Bluetooth. This is a problem with Bluetooth, is that I had it connected over there.
Hey Matt, first off, thanks so much for everything you're doing with the podcast and also for taking the time to answer a few of my questions. My first question is, once you got done with all the filming for minimalism, I'm curious how you took all the footage and decided what was going to come in, what wasn't going to come in, to start creating a storyline or a script. I'm wondering if you had everything transcribed or used some other kind of process to get from the large amount of information that I'm sure you had out to kind of where the story was headed. I know for myself, and I'm sure for others, when you're looking at a large amount of information, it can be almost a paralysis by analysis and just not knowing where to go to next. My second question is, at what point in the process did you guys decide to take on producers? Was that something that you knew that you needed from the beginning, or was that something that became more apparent to you throughout the process? And also maybe how you went about choosing a producer or producers for your project. And then lastly, at what point in the process did you guys start having conversations about distribution, maybe how long that took, or how that conversation went? I'd really appreciate any insight into any of these questions. Thanks so much again for the time, and I hope that you have a great day.
All right, so there's a lot there, and I did write it down, so you don't have to memorize.
He held so still.
You did really good.
He would do great with jump cuts on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's the thing on YouTube videos. I'm always like, over here and over here. And then
all of a sudden you're crying and then you have to edit it out.
Exactly. When you have to do a jump cut, it's just a mess.
Yeah, I know. He there was one jump cut in there, but it's so hard to even catch it.
Yeah.
So that was Jason Cohen. Appreciate the question. Oh yeah, if you guys want to send in your questions, you can send in a video, can be right from your phone to hello@mattdiavella.com, and then we'll get it on the show. This is actually something I want to start doing. So this is kind of taking that question thing to the next level. We will answer this question eventually. But I'm like, what if people started sending me the reels and like different... I'm like, what if people sent me a scene that they're working on or a reel and it's like, hey, I'm a wedding filmmaker. You know, what ways can I improve? Or a musician. They have like a rapper on the show and then we can talk about somebody's beat or somebody's music. I'm like, cool. So if you guys have really specific questions, send me what you got and then we'll get on the show. Keep the questions under 2 minutes though to keep things manageable. So first question was, and I think what we can open this up to you is like, how do you organize large projects? And we talked about this briefly, but when you got all this footage, when you've got an hour-long interview, or you got 10 of them, and you got all this B-roll, like, what is your process to keep things organized and make sure you don't lose touch of what you're trying to do here?
I do what you do for documentaries, but probably on a very, very low... Oh, should we restart that?
Fuck. I didn't plug it in. I forgot to plug it in. That never happens. That's all right. That's the backup, but the backup's gone.
Yeah, the backup's gone.
That's all right. I heard beeping. I was like, it sounded like a car backing up, and I'm like, that is the GoPro turning off.
That it's just like hanging. It's so sad.
I think I need to actually get like a shot of that to show.
Oh my gosh.
There we go.
That is so sad.
There it is.
Oh man.
It's over. That's all right.
That's all right. So funny.
It's totally fine.
Everything's fine, guys.
Yeah, no, if this cuts out. Do you do any redundancies or backups with your stuff? With podcasts?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I have 3 angles, so it is helpful to have a wide for if you need to cut something out.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a detour. Let's do that question. Organizing projects.
Yes. I do a lot of interview stuff. And so whenever it comes to one of my more documentary style videos, the final product is usually around 15 minutes, but I will have over an hour of interview footage. How I break that down is first I just put all of the interviews down in one timeline, and then I'll cut each interview to just make a seamless story. So maybe a 40-minute interview will turn into like a 30-minute interview, just to where it makes sense if you play it all the way through. And so I do that for all the interviews, and then my video is actually around the interviews. So I'll say, okay, I want this guy's interview to be the skeleton of it, and then I want 30 seconds from what she said, a minute from what they said, and kind of just like put that on my timeline, and then I'll do all of the B-roll around it. I edit in a very random way to where I will have that skeleton laid out, but at the same time I'll edit a 30-second montage thing that I'm just excited about that's going in at like 10 minutes maybe. I have to do that because I'll get really bored if not. And so I just, like random spurts of like, oh, I remember this scene, let's edit this, and I'll just stick it in at the end. So yeah, I try to always tell the story up front with the interviews, but then when it comes to putting things actually together, I'm very random. I don't start from the beginning. It's like very much so like, oh, I'll put this scene in here. And but yeah, now I've actually tried to, it's something that I'm trying to get help with, is just have a person, an editor, just cut down the interviews. And that allows me to actually go in and just like make the story. It's a difficult process right now, but I feel like I'm getting there.
Yeah, it's tough. Do you when you go through an interview, are you doing 2x speed?
Yes.
Yeah. Key. Got to do that.
I am a keyboard shortcut ninja.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
But that's why sometimes I think that like I've, probably got over 10, 15 years of experience as an editor. And that's why it's hard to bring on another editor. I mean, I do enjoy it, but obviously it's very time consuming. Like editing these podcasts, it takes me, I'll usually batch it. So I'll record like 4 episodes and then I'll go through one day and I'll edit together 4 episodes. And then the next day it's like doing the touching up and the teasers and the trailers. And like, there's so much work.
See, I'm the complete opposite where I have to do everything in almost one sitting.
Like one whole, like this project?
So Yeah.
all at once.
And it honestly, I don't know if that's the healthiest way, because once I'm done, I'm so done with it. But I will literally, when it comes to a big edit, maybe I'll just do the nitty-gritty interview stuff before, but once I sit down, I'm not moving for the next 12 hours until I finish it.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
It becomes impossible if you're doing like a feature doc.
Yeah, it's impossible with that.
But so he had a question about transcribing. We did it with one doc where we transcribed the footage. It really depends if you're working with a big team where everybody needs to be able to look through the interviews. I didn't do it for minimalism. I don't do it for like 99% of my I've only actually done it for one documentary, but everything else I didn't. My process, pretty similar, but like I'll go through an interview first, and I use markers as notes. So if I go through an hour-long interview, I'll like say at the beginning of this podcast, I'll do it for the entire thing. At the very beginning, I'll do like MM, and then it pops it up and do a dialogue. I use Final Cut 10. And then I'll type in introduction. And then I'll basically, as we go along, if there's different topics and things that come up, that'll be a new marker. That'll be a new way for me to come back and look at it.
That's really responsible of you.
That's
something I should do.
Here's the key though, is I do a double asterisk if I really like it. If it's something that's like a favorite, if it's like, oh, okay, that's definitely going to make a teaser. Like that was a killer scene. I'll just do a double asterisk, and then you can open up the dialogue and see all your markers. And then if I want to see the good stuff at the very end of editing, I'll just do I'll type in double asterisk in the search. And then all of a sudden I have like my top 10 comments. And that way I can make teasers. It really helps down the road when you're, and I did this for featured docs, like everything I do, I will go through every interview. Unless there's a crazy tight timeline. I've done some overnight shoots where it's like, I have 8 hours to edit this video. Screw it. Give me a soundbite.
Wow.
Just like try to find out exactly where it is. But that process has helped, because then, I want to do a trailer for the podcast where I include 10 different voices throughout. Imagine going back and like having to scrub through all these things again. So having that there and always having it there and organized really helps me when working on a big project or a collaborative project over time. But yeah, it's like organization, so important from the very beginning with big projects. With small projects, still important, but I usually am really bad at it. Like I'm not labeling things. I'm not putting in folders. Everything's just like kind of clustered together. Yeah. It's like when you look at the desktop and it's just filled up with icons. That's what it gets like for small projects. But yeah, it's all about organization. And I do think you have to go through it all if you want to create the best final outcome. The other question was like bringing on producers or deciding when to collaborate. Like when do you say this is a video just going to be me in it, or this is going to be a project that like I need other people for it?
I try to involve other people as much as possible. It really helps now that I have a boyfriend who is also a YouTuber. So it's always fun to just add a level of excitement with another person. And usually when that person is in the same room as you can be like, hey, do you have 5 minutes? Just come film this with me. And so I try to get as many people involved as possible, but it's so hard, especially when you're trying to create 2 to 3 videos a week. A lot of times it's just like, let's just get it done. Yeah. And especially when you live somewhere like LA, where it requires like an hour-long drive sometimes just to hang out with someone.
I'd say New York, it's similar though too, because it's an hour to get.
Yeah, but New York, 30. There's like, I don't know, subways make it so easy. Yeah. And especially for me, it's probably honestly the mentality of if you live in Manhattan, it's probably me just being a jerk and being like, I'm in Manhattan, just come to me, you know?
Right.
It's like, so maybe because I always say that makes it easier for me. And it also helps to have an office now, because I have a place for people to come and like collaborate and sit down and edit if they need to. And so that's a big win for me when involving other people.
Yeah, I think you have to, everybody has to bring something a little bit different to the table. If you just had a carbon copy of yourself, it'd be kind of boring. First of all, if you're trying to do a video where you're both in it, or if like with minimalism, essentially it was from the very beginning when we brought on all the producers, but it was Josh and Ryan bring something to the table. Like they have, first of all, it's their story we're telling. They have all these connections with other minimalists and people in that community that we can bring in. And then the big thing was that they had an audience. And that actually goes into the third question, which is like thinking about distribution. For us, it was like we didn't have to worry about distribution because Josh and Ryan had an audience that really wanted this documentary, that even if we didn't get it on Netflix, even if we didn't get it on Hulu, or it like not that many people saw it, we could have had a very nice independent release on Vimeo, and we would have probably gotten like tens of thousands of people to purchase it or buy it because that was already built in. So that one thing would be like, in collaborating and finding partners, it's finding people that can really bring something unique to the table. And then just, I would also say about distribution is don't think about that from the beginning. With small projects, it's easy. Oh, this is just going to go on my YouTube channel. This is going to go on Instagram. But for a big project, it's more important to make something great first. Think about the content, think about what you're making, and then that's what's going to sell it to Netflix is, did you make a really amazing film? When you're thinking about I'm actually curious about your strategy for like putting stuff across, because your game is like social media. You have a website, but it's incredibly simple. It's just links to your social media.
My website just links to everything else. Because I truly think all social media is like, that's where people are. So why would I try to bring people to like a website or something? So I just see my website as a place, if people are curious, all of the places I am, you can just go there. And so a lot of people try to start blogs or try to start videos where they have to shout out from their other things for people to go out of their way to go on a website or go out of their way to go to like a different video player. And I think nowadays everyone is on Instagram, everyone is on YouTube, everyone is on Twitter. So why not just bring the content to them? Why not bring, the videos and pictures and things to them? And that's the reason why when I dabbled in, I want to get better about kind of the written word and stuff, but when I dabbled a little bit in blogging, that's why I chose Medium, because I'm like, I'm not going to have a random blog on my website that no one ever goes to, but on Medium, there's actually like people search, and your blog can end up in like a suggested feed or something. And so I think it's always really beneficial to have that searchability to things and that discoverability, because even on Instagram, people, things get served up on the explore page all the time. So it's like, go to the people.
The one devil's advocate that I would play with that strategy, which is what I've learned from other people, not firsthand, well, a little bit actually firsthand, is you got to worry about the algorithms. And, with YouTube, it doesn't seem like they do any throttling or anything. But on Instagram, you can tell sometimes. You're like,
YouTube is probably as bad as Instagram, to be honest. Yeah. But it's easier to play to the algorithm on YouTube. On Instagram, it's interesting. I am just kind of experiencing what that is like, because it's like, if I don't post a picture with my face, it gets half the likes, like instantly. So it's like, it either has to be a picture of me or a picture of like me and my boyfriend. Other than that, it's like half the likes.
How do videos do?
Interesting. Videos,
it's weird to tell the engagement because there's not as many likes.
Exactly.
But then
the views are more.
Yeah.
I post very few videos on my Instagram. I'm just starting to do more. And I think my thing is I want my Instagram to almost look like a portfolio. So when someone's just scrolling through my feed, I want it to look nice. And with videos, when you couldn't do the custom thumbnails, it's like, there's no way in heck I'm doing this because my feed is still going to be ugly. So now I'm thinking the way, if I post a video, the thumbnail has to look like an Instagram picture, first of all.
That's a good point.
But then if you do that, I don't think that's what does the best if it gets served up in the Explore feed. When it comes to videos, what are the videos you're clicking on? You're clicking on the ones with the white bars and memes and like cute cats and stuff, or maybe that's what I'm clicking on. Food stuff, you know? So it's kind of playing that, I don't know, what's going to look on your feed versus what are going to get the clicks now.
Yeah, I think it's about experimenting and then seeing what works. The one thing that I'm doing now, which is like, it's starting to grow a little bit. It's still very small. And this is in terms of like keeping control of your audience and being able to reach them, was the email subscriptions.
So many people talk about that, and I'm just like so lazy with it.
Oh, it's tough. I mean, I've had it for the longest time and just never even used it. Like, I'd be collecting emails, got a few thousand, and I would just like, and then, you know, it happens where you have, you know, if you build up a huge YouTube audience and you don't talk to them in 2 years, that audience isn't going to watch your shit.
Right.
Like, you have to capitalize on it in the moment.
Right.
That's one thing that I've been like, I can see, but still Mailchimp can throttle. Mailchimp charges you per how many people.
I heard they're brutal when it comes to cost, because there's this Van Schneider. He's a big designer guy, but I think he has like around 50K or 100K. I don't know. A lot of people on his email list, and he's talking about the prices of Mailchimp a lot. Is it bad? Like, how much?
Mine is like, I mean, I have like 2,300 subscribers on email, and I think I pay $30 a month, $40, but it goes up every 500.
Every 500?
I think every 500 to 1,000, it goes up a little bit, whether it's $5 or whatever.
Wow.
Like, it can get expensive where, you know, if he's got 50,000, he's probably paying a couple $100 a month. But then it does get to the point where you're like, all right, well, I need to be able to monetize this email
So if
list.
you're not converting with affiliate links or...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's a great way to be in direct contact
100%.
with your audience. Because otherwise, like you said, if you post something on YouTube, it's got to be that right formula of... you know, title to thumbnail to be able to actually pull them in. Yeah.
Who cares about your video? Just do a good title, thumbnail, and you're fine.
Yeah. I think that YouTube must do like an algorithm where if somebody watches a full video, like the engagement,
watch time is huge,
because they want more people to stay engaged. And if you created a video that's really interesting, somebody's going to stick around longer.
That's why. So that's actually kind of the reason why I started a new YouTube channel for my podcast.
Yeah, I saw that. That's crazy. You
yeah.
can't do that. It's just, I'm like, oh, that's so much work. Oh, you gotta post it too.
Right,
do you have like social across the board with that as well?
I don't.
That
so
might be too much.
yeah, that I am a big believer too. That's why all of my creative series were underneath Sara Dietschy. Of you can use these like projects to build up your own brand, your own name, and that's what I did in the beginning. But and that's what I want to do with the podcast, just with posting on Twitter and Instagram. But with YouTube, the algorithm is so crazy that I cannot be posting an hour-long video on my channel that gets like 20% of the normal engagement.
Oh, am I screwing myself?
I don't know, because you have to know your audience, and you have to know like what, like for me, having my own podcasting channel allows me to be free to do whatever I want on that. But I've become so like formulaic with YouTube. It's like, if I don't know if like every video has to have a chance of it doing well. Like very rarely now, I did this in the past, like, oh, this is a good video, I'm just going to post it. I don't have a title, thumbnail, screw it, I'm going to post it. But like, you can't do that, because if you have one video do bad, the next 3 are going to do bad. And it's so like, you never know exactly what the algorithm wants, but you have to be in that mindset of playing the game every single time. So I'm like, if my podcasting channel, it's going to be like an hour-long video every single time. And I think that allows that channel to have more legs with it, because if they see that, oh, once a week people are coming back and spending an hour on one video, they're going to serve that up. And then also, if I want to do like recaps and stuff, I can post it on that channel. And I don't have to be scared about ruining my main channel type thing. Yeah,
true. But you were also starting out with a very large audience when you had your podcast,
right?
So I think it makes sense, because you have this people have the expectation that it's like shorter form content, and then all of a sudden you start.
And like with yours, your podcast can be the thing that like really pops off, and can make your YouTube channel huge. Yeah,
we'll see what happens. I think that. It was never about like people watching that long form video.
It's just having an option.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens, see how the algorithm changes. But it's fun to experiment and like try around and see what works and what doesn't. Let's do a few quick questions here.
Cool.
And then we shall end this podcast. Do you do much reading?
I wish. I'm really good at starting books.
What's your favorite book that you've started that's had the biggest impact on your life? Or we could do movie. We could do film.
Yeah. Okay, well, book not have an impact, but it's like igniting a curiosity in me. I think my mom got me a book of like how to rent, or like renting and buying commercial and something in your 20s. I'm very fascinated by real estate right now, and so it's kind of satiating a curiosity that actually makes me pick up a book. So that's fun.
Yeah,
that's
really
fun.
Yeah, it's always fun to kind of like learn about completely new topics.
Because I have no idea about real estate, so it's fun.
Yeah. What drives you?
Just making stuff. I mean, I know, and also giving the same thing that I had to like other people for free via the internet. I think the internet is it's like the best thing to ever happen in terms of information, to where you no longer have a paywall in front of education and you can go on the internet and learn whatever you want. So I've had the opportunity to be around some really talented people. I was really involved at my church in the creative side. So when I was doing music and I wanted to get in video, all I had to do was like sit next to a video editor person and like annoy them for 30 minutes. And I learned like weeks of knowledge just in like 30 minutes of one-on-one. And so for me, it really drives me to be able to help people in their creative journey and kind of just like make all the information that I'm consuming and make it in a fun 10-minute consumable way that they can take and pursue their like creative dreams with, you know? I just want everyone to live their best life.
Love it.
And hopefully I can help with that.
2 more questions. What's the simplest advice that's the most important to follow?
This might sound narcissistic because it's like my own quote. But something that I always said to myself was like, when in doubt, keep creating, because I've doubted myself a lot. When I posted the video that changed my life, the Casey Neistat parody video, I actually delayed posting it, and I almost didn't post it because I didn't like the way I looked in it. Like, no, the first shot, like the lighting was really weird in my apartment, and it was just casting the gnarliest shadow on myself. I was like, oh, I don't look good. And I almost didn't post it. And I was just like, you know, just post it. You spend a lot of time on it, just post it. And it changed my life. And there's been a lot of times when I've doubted myself when that big breakthrough was like just around the corner. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And what is the best place for people to find you online? Where should we send them?
Yeah, you can Google Sara Dietschy and you'll find me everywhere. Or you can just go on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and type in Sara Dietschy. SaraDietschy.
Great. You know what's great is that you've proven to me that you can have like a crazy spelled last name and you can still make it. You don't need to change your last name.
Do you have a rhymes with?
Diavella, Cruella, Devella.
There you go.
Cruella, Devella. That's all I got.
There
that
you
was
go.
My high school English teacher would call me that.
That's amazing. Yeah. Sara Dietschy rhymes with peachy.
Great.
That's
me. That works really well. All right. Thanks for doing the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And that was Sara Dietschy. Hope you guys like this podcast. I sure did have a lot of fun making it. It was great to meet her and hear about her journey, her story, and how she's continuing to create and innovate both on YouTube and elsewhere on the interwebs. Definitely check out her content. She's a great resource for any filmmakers or creatives looking to make something meaningful. And check out her podcast, The Creative Exchange. First podcast episode with Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot. I do this every one, but if you want to support the show, if you want to help out, if you want to give back, I would love that. Would just mean the world to me. Honestly, every time I check out these reviews and ratings, they make me feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. So you can go to iTunes and you can leave a review or a rating about why you like the show. If you like the show, like I said, if you don't like the show, whatever. Stop listening. Why are you listening? You're at the end of a podcast and you don't like the show. That's a problem. No, but if you like the show, I would love it if you could head over there right now and show some love. Other ways that you can support it: share this episode or another episode that you enjoyed with a friend, somebody who might also get value from it. And lastly, you can send in your questions. So if you've got a question for me or for one of my guests, send it to hello@mattdiavella.com. And I'm talking videos, I'm talking audio, none of this written word crap. Then we'll be able to help you guys and get to the bottom of what you're struggling with. And that's it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you guys next week. Biddy boo. That's it.